Welcome to Rewrite the Mother Code, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way that you never have before, but have always needed. It's time to rewrite the mother code. Hi, good morning, and welcome to Rewrite the Mother Code with me, your host, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. Today's guest will be coming on shortly. Her name is Nikki Oden, and I recently recorded to be on her podcast, which you're going to hear all about, and had such a good time. I was excited that she would agreed to join me on mine. So we're going to be speaking today about how to have a great mom life. So really fits in with particularly around the self-mothering aspect of Rewrite the Mother Code. And I know she's done a lot of work on that for herself, and looking forward to having us all hear her story. So much about, I think, yes, there's like how-tos and hacks and we need to-dos, but I know for me, the inspiration from other women who are doing the work and digging in is always such an inspiration, and it keeps me going. Yep, I'm recording here. It's Monday morning, kicking my week off, and I couldn't think of a better thing to do than sit down and have a nourishing conversation with another woman about her mom journey. It also puts me in the space of my book writing. Yes. Because that's really what I hope to convey. You know, there'll be lots of good stuff in there about how, the research and exercises and things like that. But to me, the richness is going to come from women sharing themselves and women I've coached or been around through their coaching and have gotten to see firsthand what it takes. And every little bit helps, but certainly having a coach, someone by your side to really guide, to really, buoy and hold space and open up possibilities. That's always what I feel like my job is in these instances. So that being said, of course, I would love to have you reach out anytime to hear more about coaching with me and what that looks like and the process and what we go through and what the possibilities would be for you. You can reach out to me via email, Gertrude@drgertrudelyons.com. And that's Dr. Gertrude, Gertrudelyons.com. All right, here we go. Well, as I promised, here I am with Nikki Oden. Welcome to the show, Nikki.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Gertrude. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. I know I am too, because I had so much fun and was so inspired being on your podcast, which I'll share about here in a second. So thank you. And we're going to jump right in. I'm going to share some about Nikki and then have her more personally share as we do. So, but I think to hear about this inspiring life is a good start. Good way for us to kick off. Okay. So Nikki Oden is a lawyer and mom mentor who helps working moms battle burnout by teaching them how to own their days and crush their goals without the mom guilt. After walking away from a lucrative career as a commercial litigator for a prestigious international law firm to become a stay-at-home mom, Nikki learned firsthand how easily a woman can completely lose herself in motherhood. Don't I know it? Okay. Realizing that she needed something that was hers outside of being mommy and wife, Nikki started a home-based business and quickly experienced what it means to live in survival mode. Eventually, through a lot of trial and improvement, she figured out how to harmonize what she wants as an ambitious woman with who she wants to be as a mother. Of course, we're going to dig into that, and is passionate about teaching other working moms how to do the same. Her mission is to help those moms love their mom lives and themselves a little more. Nikki is the founder of Your Ideal Mom Life, host of Love Your Mom Life podcast and author of But Definitely Wear Mascara, hacks to help you love your mom life and yourself a little more. Her work has been featured in the Boston Globe, Today Parents, Cafe Mom, Kid Spot, Clean Plates, Authority Magazine, Fox 5's Good Day, DC, NBC6, and more, I'm sure. So, Nikki, that's quite a lot and quite a beautiful journey just hearing it, off the page.
Thank you.
But now we get to hear more about it from you live. And because I know it's been a huge journey for you. So, wherever you want to pick up or wherever you want to start and kind of just jump right in.
Yeah, I think that for me, it was a big surprise becoming a mother and it not being easy, which is, I think, a
Yes.
really naive thing.
It's not naive. It's built into our culture that we
Right.
think, right? We think it's supposed to, somehow we're fed that it's supposed to be easy. So yes, keep going.
Well,
Not
it's like
naive.
something like presumably anyone biologically, and I know I'm being a little bit flippant there, but like generally that anyone can do. And
Yeah.
I'm not being insensitive about infertility. I know that is a very real struggle for a lot of women. It's just not something that you grow up thinking about. So you think like, yeah, I'm just going to have a baby, and how hard can it be to be a mother? And I think for me, being super type A and having graduated first in my class from law school and then working really hard as a lawyer for this prestigious firm, I was like, nothing's harder than this. Nothing can be more difficult than what I've been through these last 9 years. So
yeah.
I was shocked. I was really surprised when it wasn't easy. And I found myself really like in tears almost every day because of how hard it was. And I couldn't articulate to my husband and to other friends who hadn't had children yet why it was hard.
Yeah.
And I think as I reflect back on it, it's a number of reasons. For number one, my hormones were probably wackadoo, right? They're up, down, trying to regulate after giving birth.
Sure.
And then there's just the weight of it, the sheer importance of this human, this other human that you've brought into the world and who is completely and utterly dependent on you for even just their next meal, to not be sitting in a soiled diaper all day. Every little thing is on you. And I think the weight of that I took that really seriously. And so I think my journey was really interesting and probably not all that unique, but interesting for me because I really went through a lot in terms of my personal development, from becoming a mother and wanting to be the best mother I could be, whatever that meant for me. And then realizing that doing that meant I had lost who I was before. And I was like, wait a minute, how do I get that girl back? Because I think she should be allowed to exist. And I started to notice women who were older than me who were having kids leave the nest, and they were like, I don't know who I am now. I don't know who I am without these kids to take care of. And I really felt like I don't want that to be me. So I had it was a lot of moving parts because I had told my husband I wanted to be home. I had said I was going to take care of these kids. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, I was like, I don't like this. And I felt really guilty about it.
Sure.
I felt a lot of judgment. I felt like if I said that out loud, the moms who were at home were going to be like, what kind of mom are you? You don't want to be around your kids all day. And the moms at the law firm would be like, what is wrong with you? You get to be home with your kids all day and you want to come back and do some kind of work. It was a really trying time, but eventually I was able to harmonize, like you said in my bio, who I wanted to be as a woman with the mother I wanted to be. And I want that for other moms.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things that you touched on in there, Nikki, that we could go on and on about, but I think particularly, what we said, oh my gosh, which one do I pick? Okay. The aspect of feeling like if I did such hard things and those are hard, first of a class at law school. And then, I have friends and know people who work in law and litigation and whatnot. And it's intense. So how could anything be harder than that? Right. But I think what I want to say about that is, well, they're very different hard. Right. But
Yes,
we're
that's a
not,
great way to say it.
they're very different hard. And
Mhm.
I'm going to make a big generalization, and then we can talk about it. But the school and the job is very masculine, yang, right? It's you have a course, you study, you kind of know what's expected, you know what it's going to take to accomplish that goal. And then and there's systems that help you that reflect how you're doing, right?
Right.
There's grades, there's
Right.
awards, there's all these levels and ways. And then same in our job, where we're given a certain salary, we're given increases when we do well, we have so many guideposts to kind of tell us, like, and frame what doing it well, but just how you're doing. And they're very doing oriented, whereas I think we're not. It's not like we took classes. Of course, that would be terrible, like like back to home ec classes, because even those wouldn't have taught us. Those still would have taught us about the doing of it, probably more so than
Certainly. The being.
necessarily the being. And I think
Right.
that's what we want to get at, is that feminine, yin aspect of the being that comes with us. And you mentioned hormones, and you mentioned all of these things that, come at you in just this rush, right when you give birth to a baby, and then new
Mhm.
motherhood. There's just so much going on physically.
Yes.
And then, you're in what's really a very being space. And that's, I think, when you said, like, there's no words to really explain. Like,
Right.
I try and tell my friends why this is hard, and you can't put words to it, because it is so, again, a generalization, right brain.
It's
It's
experiential.
a right brain experience that doesn't necessarily hold words in the same way. So
Mhm.
I really wanted to underline that point, because I think so many women come across it. And then you bring up the, like, well, one's got to be better than the other, not better, but, oh, I choose one. Why aren't you doing this? And then
Right.
all finding that balance. So yeah. So now I'd love to hear more about what that journey was like for you to choose what was right for you, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not like any of these choices are right or wrong, full-time at-home mom, full-time work, which still technically includes being a full-time mom. We just pretend it
100%.
doesn't.
Right.
So that's the big lie in that one. Like, yeah, I'm a working mom. It just means, yes, you have a second full-time job in addition to all
Exactly.
the other things. Um, but what was that journey like for you? Because there's, all of them are choices. It's more about how you got to what worked for you and what that was like.
I love what you just said about it not being binary. And I don't know that I ever, until this moment, until you said that, realized that that's what I was struggling against. It wasn't binary for me. And I wanted it to be a blend of something, because I am a complex, multifaceted human being. I'm not
You're
just a
here.
mother, nor am I just a lawyer. So
Hmm.
I think that is where the struggle was for me. And the way I stepped into trying to blend those things was by starting a home-based business. So I said, okay, I'm not going back to lawyering, because in my mind, there's no lawyering that can be done that is not mutually exclusive with being a mother. I later learned
Hmm.
that was a lie that was just telling myself because of the experience I'd had. But
Sure.
I dabbled, began by starting a home-based business, just so that I could have that feeling of, I'm still here. I'm
Mhm.
still available when you need me. I just also have something else that I'm creating. And that was an amazing experience. I met a lot of great women, made a lot of friends. It was a social selling opportunity. And that is also when I learned what it meant to live in survival mode, because I did care about this business and I cared about who I was becoming through that process. And it was very important to me. However, being the mother I wanted to be was also important. And by then I had two children who are 17 months apart. So at that time, it was a little rough. There was
Yes.
a
That's a
lot of
lot,
trying to keep one kid from murdering the other,
for
et
sure.
cetera, peeing on the floor, all the things. So learning that feeling of being in survival mode, of never sitting down to have a meal, of literally eating in the car, like in the movie Bad Moms, where eating while the car is moving. I had a lot of those moments where I was trying to cram so much in. And I realized that this wasn't unique to being a home-based business owner, that um, moms who work outside the home and, have the full-time job, they were probably going through this as well. And I realized coaching other people on my team that we all have this beastly struggle of trying to
Mm.
harmonize these two things. And that really inspired me. That really broke my heart open to wanting to help other moms. That's where all of this was born for me, and this passion, because I lived it. I live it every day. And I know it's a real thing. It's like something we can talk about here and there, like at parties, like, oh, it's so hard to be a working mom. But it's not just because of the time part of it. It's because of that, who am I part of it, that I'm
Mhm.
both of these people, and how do I do both of these things well?
Yeah. No, well said. And well, it brings up for me how we measure ourselves. And I know there's something, you work on around supporting moms with the difference between, navigating self-criticism
Mhm.
and, bringing up compassion. So I'm going to want you to dive into that a little bit more, kind of how you do that and where you go, because you've obviously had to work on that yourself. Right?
Yes.
And measuring ourselves, there's just so many ways in the well, and I just want to say, also what's so different about the mom job is there really is no other job you'll do that you care about in a way that no external job can compare to,
Right.
right? There just is a difference, and that's just true. We mother in all of those arenas, right? We
Mhm.
mother in our career, and you
Yep.
mother with your husband, but this has its own very distinct nuance. So the vulnerability,
Mhm.
and this desire to want to do a good job that you have really no, as I said, navigation parameters to guide you other than
No grades.
what the experts say, or what your family says, which is what I work on helping women see is tuning into yourself. So
Right.
if you don't mind sharing a little bit more how you traded self-criticism for compassion, which I know is an ongoing job,
Yeah.
it's not a one and done, and then support other women to do that.
I started to realize that the things I was telling myself a lot of times weren't true. And I started to become more intentional about noticing what I was saying to myself. And as I'm coaching other moms through this, I explain to them that when you're intentional and you're aware, you will come to realize that guilt is a choice. Mom guilt is a choice, and it doesn't always feel like it. It feels a lot of times like it's inevitable, or maybe even like it makes you a better mom. But the truth is, it only hurts you. And I think that it's okay to have that initial, sort of knee jerk reaction when things happen, or when you fall short, or you don't show up the way you wanted to,
Mm.
or you didn't prepare the way you should have. And now your kid is at book fair without money, right? Like there's tremendous opportunity there to feel guilt. We can't always control that first thought, but the second thought, let's be more intentional and aware and take responsibility for our second thought. So that's how
Mhm.
I started. I just started to practice a new second thought. And sometimes, I mean, like you said, it's an ongoing thing. The other day, my first thought, I made a mistake about something, was, you suck. You suck. And then my second thought was, no, you don't. You
Yes.
no, you totally don't. And then I'm literally having this conversation with myself in my head. You're amazing. Look at all the things that you've done. Everyone makes mistakes. It's okay. And then,
Mhm.
like, even with the kids, your kid's going to be okay. Your kid knows you love them. They know that. You show them in the way you care for them, in the fact that you tuck them in, that they have a roof over their heads, that they have food, that they have clothing, and that you show them you love them. The fact that they ended up at book fair without money, yeah, it's unfortunate, but they know you love them, right? So you
Mhm.
can choose to dwell on things like that and berate yourself, but it doesn't change what happened. And it's not going to make you a better mother going forward. Maybe you'll remember next time, but there are other ways you
Yes.
could have yourself remember next time without the berating. So
Oh,
I really want people to forgive themselves and to treat themselves like you would treat someone you love. And my rule of thumb is, if you wouldn't say it out loud to your child, don't say it to yourself. You would
here,
never tell
here.
your son that he sucks, or you would never tell your daughter that she doesn't matter. So stop doing it to yourself.
Oh, that's So spot on. I love that. And you said something earlier too about, oh, maybe we need to like do something different to help remember that money. And how often, we go to blame or shame or, justification as opposed to we need a new system.
Mhm.
Like that's really the only thing that's going to change this. Like you
Right.
said,
And
grading
that's just, this is
myself,
information now.
this
I
is
know I need a new system because I forgot.
right. And then, yeah, maybe I need help setting up systems. Maybe that's something my partner's better at than
Right.
I am. Or yeah, no, I'm the one in the family that's good about, getting the system set up. Right. And that relieves sometimes these really practical things. But then you also said it's practical in its own way too, because that's where, we're rewriting scripts, we're rewiring ourselves and these messages that have just become a habit in our head also,
Exactly
right?
right.
So you have a new system of following up, catching yourself, first of all, in a negative thought, which you're doing, right? And then following it up with a positive one, which you have plenty, right? And then even data like, is this the end of the world? Is my child going to die because he or
Right.
she didn't have their book fair money? No, but I'm having a lot of feelings about how that reflects on me. And I can tend to those feelings, right?
Mhm.
Because it's okay to have feelings. I'm
Absolutely.
right.
Yes.
And I know that's something
Yeah, I was going to say, I
that,
would love to touch on that because I'm not
yeah, go
talking about
ahead.
toxic positivity to where you're trying to force yourself to feel something that you don't feel. I'm talking about what is actually true. You are a good mother. You are a capable human being. Those things are true. So telling yourself you're not is that it's just lies, that there's nothing good that will come from that. And punishing yourself isn't going to make it better. Like I think sometimes people feel like, well, that's what I deserve because I
Mm,
messed up. And really the two things that they're not related.
mhm.
Beating yourself up over and over again is probably something you've been doing for years and you still make mistakes. So it's
Right.
not making you any more perfect. It's just
Yeah.
serving to create this undercurrent of not loving yourself. And trust me, your kids will notice that. And that's an even
Mhm.
bigger thing. They watch the way you treat yourself, and that's how they learn how to treat themselves.
Mhm.
So we have
Oh
to
my
be
gosh.
really vigilant about that.
That's kind of the good news, bad news thing, right? Sometimes we give our kids so much and, provide all this, but really where they're learning everything is by watching us
100%.
24/7.
Yep. Little sponges.
24/7, little
And
sponges.
then you're like, oh, why did you say that to yourself? And they're like, well, I heard you say it. It's always like, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
that's a reality
Yeah.
check.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because, right, we're not talking about toxic positivity as you called it. But yeah, and then making this distinction, sometimes we do have to fake it a little bit till we make it. We might not believe like,
Yeah.
are fully, but the more you feed yourself some of that data, right?
Right. I
Actual
totally
data
agree.
about what you do that, is very positive and there'd be no question that your children don't feel loved because they
Right.
do.
Of
And you're
course.
teaching them that it's okay to make mistakes. Like,
Mhm.
oh, mommy made a mistake, right? We're going to figure out how to, have a new system,
Yep.
but, owning and not trying to pretend like we don't, I think also, because I think that's something when we feel so guilty, or as we said, we're modeling that it's not okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn, right? And
Right.
it's
Right.
so how we learn. Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather if that's the space that you're in and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of 𝐒𝐡𝐤𝐻, Mexico. 𝐒𝐡𝐤𝐻 meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if that idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudeLyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat. And then, I was thinking about the what it kind of takes to rewire. And I like what you said, because the deep aspect of that, right? There's wow, where did those voices come from? How did I come to be so self-critical? And I think that's kind of the gift of these things coming up.
Right.
When we're aware, is I get to explore that. This to me is how I heal and grow through my mothering, not just get through it, and kind of find tactical ways. It makes you more aware.
Right.
You have this opportunity to possibly heal, voices. It could be from our upbringings. It could be, from the atmosphere we grew up in, that sent some of those messages, or you felt like it did. Sometimes it's literal. Sometimes we just feel like it is. So we believe them. And that unbelieving and that unwiring, unraveling of that is the opportunity when we make ourselves aware, and when we can catch it and give ourselves, what we're giving our children, which I think is such a key, important thing that we can take on.
I think that is the gift in all of this. And
right?
I think it's very easy to miss it and to brush it off, or to be ashamed that you have these feelings. But when you can look at them for the message they're giving you, and perhaps what they're a symptom of, and be able to give yourself permission to dive into that and find out where it comes from, that's exciting. It's exciting to be able to heal that unprocessed trauma that might be 40 years old.
Yes.
And to release it. It's never too late to release that pain and that trauma. And when I say trauma, I'm not talking about like something horrible happened to you. I'm just talking about you perceived something when you were 1 or 2 as meaning something about who you were and what you were worth. And now you've been telling yourself a story and trying to find evidence for years and years and years about why that's true, about why you're not good enough. And unpacking that and being able to release it is such a gift.
It really is. And I think where you and I are so aligned, it's like, we want mothers, women, people to know this and know that it's not that they're doing something wrong, that strong feelings come up, or, the self-criticism, all the things we've been talking about. That's not a mark against us. It's a mark. It's just a signpost along the way for like, hey, here's something to tend to,
Exactly.
we're just, waving the flag. And, one of the gifts of having a children is they're going to stir all that stuff up. They're going to bring up all that baggage. And no, do we have time to dig into everyone right in that moment? But that's where, mentors and coaches like us come in, right? Because just taking that time, setting time aside for, in a coaching environment that can help you unpack that, help you see it, because we're not always aware in the moment. We know something's going on and we sense it, and we know something's not up, but we don't know what to do. And I know that's some of what you do, and maybe that's what's in your book or just in your coaching, but as we call them, like the hacks, to I'm going to call it hacks to self-mothering. You worded a little bit differently, but do you want to share maybe a little bit about that and kind of how you
Yeah.
I don't mean boiled it down, but you know what I mean.
Well, you mentioned my book. It's called But
Yeah.
Definitely Wear Mascara, and it's full of hacks to help you love yourself and your
Yes.
mom life a little bit more. So I think this is all very profound. And I think for a lot of us, it's hard to wrap your mind around. So I love breaking it down and giving little tips and tricks on just how to love yourself a little bit more, because
Mhm.
that's going to in turn help you love your mom life more. And it's going to help with your relationship with your kids and with your spouse and with your friends and your coworkers, et cetera. Because I believe a woman is the center of her household. And so if she is feeling more fulfilled and peaceful and joy and awareness, that just spills over into everything that she does. It's kind of like when they say, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. That's true.
Mhm. It is.
And
I'm
whether it's not
100%
always
behind that.
intentional, it's not like you're trying to make everyone else unhappy, but it spills over into everything you do. And especially because your kids are so receptive and they feel your energy, it really, the way you treat yourself and how you go about starting your days and spending time on yourself really affects them as well. So the book, has a lot of, we talk about perfectionism and how to kind of recover from that. We talk about speaking to yourself the way you would speak to somebody you love. We talk about the 5 people you hang around the most. Because
Mm.
when you want to think about like the stories you're telling yourself or the words you've been hearing all your life, a lot of that's coming from the people you're hanging around. And sometimes I don't mean physically. I mean the people you talk to on the phone every day, maybe even the shows you watch or the podcast you listen to, the news channel that you're tuning into. All of that's affecting how you perceive the world and how you perceive yourself. So to be really intentional about what you're allowing into your innermost space is extremely important. And a lot of times it's not something that we really stop and think about until we start having this awareness. And if you want your life to look a certain way, then you better believe you need to be listening to and hanging out with and sharing stories with other people who want their lives to look that way too.
Mm.
Otherwise, you're just it's like crabs in a bucket. You just kind of go that way, and it's not intentional. It's like it's this story that you're telling yourself over and over again because it's what you're hearing and what you're allowing yourself to be exposed to.
No, that's a big one, Nikki.
Mhm.
And that can be hard because, maybe there were some people in your life that like fit a certain aspect or, time in your life, but now, or as you raise more awareness or you get more mindful and attuned and that much more sensitive to what's nourishing for you and what's helping buoy you and empower you and bring you along. Sometimes those relationships or friendships don't fit anymore.
No,
And
they don't.
it's kind of like, uh, they worked then and, that can be a challenge to let go, but that is such a big act of loving yourself and,
It is.
self-mothering to do that because, research proven that the impact of the people closest to you or everything, it's our energy to the habits, like you said, what we see is influencing us in what might be obvious, but also what might not be so obvious ways. So I think that's a really big one. And,
It is. And
and
I,
how,
I talk about in the book that it doesn't mean that you axe the person from your life and they're dead to you. I mean, I have
Mhm.
plenty of friends, like you were just saying, from earlier stages of my motherhood journey who I spoke to every single day, who I hardly ever speak to now. But when we speak, it's always from a place of love. It's always a joyful interaction. It's not like, oh,
Mm.
well, you
I'm
don't
just doing
like me
this
anymore,
because,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And so I think that sometimes people are afraid of that, about being intentional about the 5 people they hang around the most, about, upgrading their 5, which is something I like to say. And when I say that, I don't mean that you just completely cut people out of your life or that they don't exist anymore, you don't have time for them. It's just you share in different ways and you grow
Mm.
away in a respectful and loving way, but that doesn't mean that you care any less about them or that you don't think they're good people. So I like to make that distinction because I think
For
for a lot
sure.
of women, especially, it sounds scary and really difficult. That's not for me, but it can be. You just have to you take it one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something that you also talk about because, and you shared, and I underlined it when I read your bio about how easy it is to lose yourself in your children.
Mm.
And I know that happened for me. And I was coaching and, in a growth environment, my coaching sessions became all about my kids. Our couples coaching sessions became about our kids. And I kind of knew in the back of my mind that was happening, but I was also super relieved that the heat was in some ways, as I call it, off me. And
Mhm.
I could kind of stop doing my exploration because I needed to tend to these children, all these different ways, subtle and not so subtle, that we lose ourselves with our children. Do you want to share a little bit about how you see that or what that was like for you?
For me, I think it was pretty consuming. It felt physical.
Mm,
I felt like I wasn't sleeping as well, which I that's sort of par for the course, as they say, when you have a very small child. And I also just felt like I wasn't doing things for myself, like I wasn't exercising, I wasn't taking time that was just for me. And I told myself the story that I couldn't. How can I? I have these 2 kids and they need me. They need me to be there all the time. Now, again, I'm not talking about the first 12 weeks of life, right? Because they
right.
they do need you.
They need a
But like
lot. Yeah.
when they're toddlers and they have interests, I mean, you can't leave them alone, but you can certainly get 20 minutes to yourself. They are sleeping, through the night, so you should be sleeping, that kind of thing. And I just for me, I just realized one day that I was like, when was the last time I showered? And I don't know if I brushed my teeth today. Like I wasn't taking these little moments for
Mhm.
myself. And that's when I realized that I wasn't happy. And it took me a long time to realize that the happier I was, the better I was with them and the more that I could give to them. And
Yes.
I hear moms say all the time, well, easier said than done. And I always love to say, done is better than said. I got that from a friend of mine. His name is
I
Chris
love it.
Rudin. And I was
Uh,
like, it's so true. But he says anything that requires action, literally anything, is easier to say than it is to do. It is easier to say you're going to wash your hair than it is to actually go in the shower and wash it, right? Everything's easier said than done. So stop saying that to yourself. You can find the time for you. And when I say like to reverse this ship, I took really, really tiny baby steps. And I think that's the only way to make a lasting change is to do things slowly and in small increments, because otherwise you're biting off more than you can chew or it's unsustainable. So for me, it
mhm.
just started up with waking up a tiny bit earlier. Woke up a little earlier just so I could have time while my kids were sleeping that was completely mine, just
Mm.
peace and quiet to myself. And I had a very honest conversation with my husband about what this meant to me. And so then we started, as the kids got older, with him helping me in the morning. So in the morning, if the kids are hungry and they need to get dressed or whatever it is, he's the one they're going to. He's the one who's helping them so that I can have that time to myself to meditate, to journal, to write a book.
Yes.
And it has made a huge difference, not only in my life and my perspective and in getting myself back, but also in our families' lives, because my
Mhm.
kids are getting that time with daddy, which is great. And they're also watching me take care of myself. And they are very respectful of it. Like there are times when I have a little sign on my door that says mom's quiet time. And if they're being loud and they walk by that and they see the sign, they're like, shh, mom's meditating. And I can hear them, but I love that they see me doing that and that they
Mhm.
are growing up with that being like a normal thing that their mother does. And why not you? Why can't that be
Yeah,
you? It can,
it
like it
can.
doesn't have to be an hour and a half every morning if you don't have someone to help you with your kids, but it could be 20 minutes. You could wake up 20 minutes earlier and just do something for yourself, do burpees for, stand on your head, whatever it is, like get some time to yourself. But that is one of the ways that I think I took back who I was. And then when I started to make that a habit, again, it spilled into everything else I did, into my
Mhm.
decisions, into how I speak to myself, into the goals I pursue. It's like dominoes.
Yeah. Thank you, because I think that's so important that we can't hear it enough. And, say what's so too is the I can't. is oftentimes victimhood.
Yeah.
We just have to tell the truth about it.
Yeah.
We're victimized, and we want the world to see how we're suffering and how hard this is. And we think is what's going to reflect it, is one, I think, unconscious reason we go into that victimhood. And there's also like just vulnerable, tender things about it. So there's, what I really love about you're saying is take a small step, then
Yeah.
build on it. Because if we just say like, oh, I'm going to take my morning back, and suddenly have this, what you got to with your husband, you partnering in it, and then you having more and more time, was built over time. That
Yes.
didn't happen overnight, but it
No.
did happen with you making the choice and prioritizing yourself, even in a small way. Even if it was like starting with a 5-minute meditation before you got going, 2 minutes, just waking up, in a different mindset. It really is a choice.
It
And,
is. And
I
I
want to
love what you just
underline
said.
that.
Prioritizing yourself in a small way, and it builds and builds. And that's actually what the title of my book means when I say, but definitely wear mascara. It's prioritize yourself in a small way, even if all you have time for is to swipe on the mascara or whatever that is for you. I mean, no actual mascara is necessary. For me,
Yeah.
that's what makes me feel like,
No, but
okay,
it's
I tried.
symbolic, right? It's
Right.
symbolic,
Exactly.
and we can take that small thing and be a little bit more mindful about it. Like, ooh, I can look at myself in the mirror. I can
Mhm.
like smile at myself in the mirror while I'm putting on that mascara. I can make that a moment
Yes.
if I choose, right?
If you
And
choose.
just the sheer act of wanting to, look a little nicer for myself,
For
whatever.
myself, right.
But I also think something that we don't realize is the outcome of this, what we're saying, the self prioritization, the self mothering, is it more and more allows us, and, not choosing victimhood, but choosing, to make a choice, is it gets us in the moment. Consciously choosing to put that mascara on brings us to the present moment. It brings us to ourselves. And I don't think we always say that that's what we're going for, but I believe it's where so much of the nourishment is having,
Yes.
oh, and then I took better care of myself. Oh my gosh, I'm in better shape. So I can actually be engaged and aware with my child or children or my husband, and have, present in the moment interactions with them. And those are gold, right? Those
They
don't,
are.
but if I'm not presencing myself with myself and giving myself some of that space, I'm going to miss them, and I think for
Mhm.
me, that's what I so didn't want, is to miss. And I treasure those times where I was present, to myself. And they're very vivid in my mind,
It's
moments with
huge.
my children or as a family. And
And
they're hard won. That's to me what this
yeah.
is all for.
And it's always available to you, that ability to get present, to get into your senses and to be
Mhm.
aware of what is really happening right now.
Yeah.
Because the things that are happening in your head don't exist. They are either already happened or they might never ever happen. The only thing that's real is this moment right now. And so I think what you just said is so important, and we can't talk about it enough, because despite being something that is simple, it is not easy. And it
Right.
is so much easier to get caught up in the sounds in your brain of the chatter, the memories, the berating, whatever it is. And none of that's real.
I
That's not
know.
actually happening. I think my favorite sense when I'm trying to get present is my sense of sound, because when I'm listening to what I can actually hear with my ears, I can't hear what my brain is trying to pull me
Yes.
into, that little vortex. And it's extremely powerful.
So much. Yes. All right. I'm going to ask this question, and then I want to find out how people can find you. But I love how you put mother should be on your resume. And I just would love to hear you speak into that a little bit, and then we'll
Yeah.
start
So
wrapping up.
I realized 'cause I eventually did go back to lawyering. I think I didn't connect those dots with your audience, but I
Mhm.
do now practice law. I practice not at a law firm anymore, but I eventually realized that this was something I'm good at, and maybe there's a way to do it in a way that I enjoy.
Mm.
So in between leaving the big law firm and finding myself back in corporate America, I was like, I have a gap on my resume. And I started to think about all of the skills that I learned, not just from the home-based business, but from being a mother at home. And when this really, I think, became a popular idea was during COVID. I think people became more receptive to this because of the quarantine, because of how many working mothers were unable to report to work, even when businesses reopened because schools weren't reopened or because they couldn't find, childcare. And a lot of them needed ways to show like how being a mother makes them marketable. And I think that these skills are fully translatable to the workplace because being a mother teaches a woman in an almost boot campish way how to be a leader. And those are things that all employers should be looking for in their employees. So for number one, being a mother definitely helps you to juggle multiple things, not to be confused with multitasking. I don't believe in multitasking because your brain literally, you can't do two things at once, despite what everyone wants to tell you. But we can juggle. And what I mean by that is like, we know what it's like to have, entertaining these humans or having to pick them up at a certain time and also get dinner on the table and also work. So we're able to juggle multiple projects at once and without freaking out. We have that innate ability. And so I used to, the example I would give is, yes, I can do this research project and write this memo for you. And also, do this thing for the client. And no, I'm not going to cry. Like I have this skill set. Another thing is like you talk about mothering in different areas of your life. Mothers, I think, are really good at diffusing conflict in the workplace and really good at helping people who might not like each other collaborate for the team effort. And I do think that that's something that we are better at than perhaps our male counterparts because of that. Like you talked about the yin and the yang, because I think that's something that's inherently built into us. But when we have children, we have to hone that skill every day. I mean, nobody knows more than a mother how to diffuse conflict than someone who has two kids fighting over an iPad when, the power's out. So we know how to diffuse, conflict and bring people together. And I think that is a great soft skill that is directly translatable to the workplace. And I also think we're very prepared. I mean, it only takes your kid barfing in the car once to remember emesis bags and ginger ale and crackers the next road trip, right? So those kinds of things we think about with presentations, like, well, just in case something happens to the laptop, maybe we should put it up, on Google Drive so we can access it from anywhere, from any device. So these are things that I
so
think,
transferable, so generalizable.
Yeah.
And we take them for granted because you're so in the moment,
right.
troubleshooting, figuring this out, kind of some of it doing in the fly, but you're bringing forth and either developing or utilizing a combination, I think, of the yin and yang in a way that sometimes you can kind of get away with not doing in a corporate setting, or, it's not as called upon.
That's exactly right. It's not called upon, but it's
valuable. Valuable. And that's what they're seeing in the companies today and places where there are more women in leadership, more women on boards that are bringing this more of that aspect, to the table. They're not just coming to try and be another guy.
Exactly.
We had to do that for a while, but now I feel like, it's time and more women are bringing this aspect, and the fact that you got to kind of work it in a boot camp sort of way, in early motherhood only enhances that trait and that ability that is needed. It's not just, yes, plenty of research to show how it helps the bottom line, but we just need it. Like you said, like I wanted to work because I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to feel good about what I was doing. It wasn't just for the promotion or to check a box. It really was because I want to feel good and I want to feel satisfied. And those are valuable reasons.
Absolutely. And if I haven't been working, I'm still valuable because I have these skills that are transferable to the workplace. And I want women to highlight those things instead of playing them down and sort of glossing over them and believing about themselves that they don't have skills when they do.
Here. Okay. So I want my audience to know how they can be in contact with you, get your book or anything that you want to highlight here. And of course it'll be in the show notes.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So the book is available wherever books are sold. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's also on Audible and Kindle. So if you just search for, but definitely wear mascara or Nikki Oden, it'll come up. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is Nikki Oden. And of course, my website, youridealmomlife.com, or the podcast, Love Your Mom Life.
Yes.
And you can hear Gertrude.
You can hear me and lots of other great people and Nikki herself. So it's been a pleasure. My last question that I like to end the show with is, what does rewriting the mother code mean to you?
Rewriting the mother code to me means allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to be the mother you want to be, and not the mother you were told you were supposed to be, or that you read about in a book, or even that you saw modeled for you by your own mother. And really allowing yourself to be the whole person. And that's what it's meant for me, not losing myself to one or the other, but allowing myself to be both a woman with goals and dreams and a mother who fiercely loves her children.
Oh, so beautifully said. So on point, Nikki, which we not surprised you have it like really nailed in there, because it's what you're doing. I feel like, and I'm so grateful to meet people who are rewriting their mother codes and, taking what is been in our culture, kind of a minimized job that we're supposed to do and all the things, and uplifting it into how it should be honored, but the growth opportunity and the potential in it. So thank you.
Thank you for
doing that. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So thankful that Nikki could join us on the podcast. And I think she has so much of value to contribute. And I think just continuously hearing voices, experiences, and examples of women who are making choices and rewriting their mother codes and doing it their way, but mindfully and responsibly, and in ways that we can emulate. And I think we always have to watch, because if you listened all the way through, there was a point at which I talked about that it's easy to get in victimhood as a mom, victimhood, self-pity, and mistake that for pain or, actual feelings. And it's not, it's our victimhood. And it's okay to have a little boohoo and feel sorry for ourselves. But what I think, Nikki, in our conversation, we were really underlining that we have so much more choice than we think we do, and just how important it is to activate that choice, make a first step, like any first step toward something that is self-care oriented, even if it's doing something that you are already doing, like going to the bathroom, right? Something we got to do. We can't not do that and take time for that. But what if in that moment, while we're releasing, we thought something like, oh, what is it that I need to release today as I'm going to the bathroom? Like, we don't have to make this hard. We just have to, in moments, and sometimes building on something that we're already doing or have to do. I'm using that example because it's so explicit, but it could be also something like brushing our teeth or making coffee. If there's just certain have tos that you have in your life, we can just add a twist to it and add something like, oh, if it's coffee, what do I feel energized about today? If we think about the spirit of the sacredness of the coffee bean, even, and be a little and say a little prayer over my coffee and the energy that I invoke in it to give me for the day. So I want to, keep breaking it down, making it as simple as possible, but more and more getting rid of, letting go of any victimhood, and then guilt or shame when we are doing additional things to the like have tos. And I think that's something that we talked about and underlined. And, as I said at the beginning, this is where coaching is really helpful, because setting out and really clarifying a vision for yourself, because that vision is your rewritten mother code. It is you, naming and saying like what matters to you, what's the kind of quality of experience. And Nikki said that too, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. And we can paint that picture, in a vision and write it how we want to write it. And that is possible. And something else Nikki said, she saw when she looked at kind of some of the choices, or, how it kind of looked to her of the choices that she had about how mothering was going to go for her, she didn't always like everything that she saw, and she wanted to create her own path. And that's what we have the chance to do. It is possible. And hearing from people like her shows us that it's possible. So again, would love your thoughts. Would love to hear anything that struck you about, this particular conversation, and any reactions or thoughts you have around choice versus victimhood. Would love to hear it. So reach out to me on Instagram at Dr. Gertrude Lyons. You can DM me or send me an email, Gertrude at drgertrudelyons.com. And always, please, please, please go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, because I love sharing both things that I'm learning and things that are on my mind, as well as letting you know, what I'm offering and things I have going in my world. All right. Till next time. Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to Rewrite the Mother Code. It helps other people who need this message, aka all women, well, actually everybody, men included, to find it. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful, and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons, or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com, and sign up for my newsletter. I'll see you next time.